Hey everybody, Eric Switzer here for another TG Roundtable, joined by two precious little gamers, George Foster
Hello.
and the Gamers Editor-in-Chief, Stacey Henley.
Hello.
We are in the tail end of June, which means we're more than halfway through 2024. And unless you're a Final Fantasy player, it's going to be a pretty quiet July, I think. So we're going to do what we usually do this time of year and kind of take stock, look at how far we've come and what's still ahead. So today we're going to be covering some of our most anticipated games for the rest of 2024. I've brought my list. Do you have your lists?
I have my
I have
list.
my list as well.
My list, I tried to do some obvious things, some things that we have talked about recently with the showcases, your Xboxes and your Nintendos and whatnot. Yep. But I also wanted to bring some stuff that might not be on people's radar and some things we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. So if you don't mind, let me start with one of mine.
Yes.
I saw this, I played this during Summer Games Fest, but I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about it yet, and that is the Plucky Squire.
Ooh,
oh yeah,
good start.
Yeah,
very good start.
So I didn't know this until I met him, and boy, I should have wrote his name down. But the director of this game has a very long Pokemon career.
James T, I think it is.
I'll believe whatever you say.
Let me look.
Was like a creative director on a bunch of the mainline Pokemon games.
I also didn't know. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, including recent ones, and also
it is James T. Yes, I was right.
And also has some Pokemon cards that he did the art for, and I believe is the only non-Japanese artist to ever have made a Pokemon card.
I didn't know it went that far, but I know from following on Twitter, like he does amazing art all the time, like lots of Nintendo stuff, Sonic stuff, really cool.
The Plucky Squire is very much his art style, and these Pokemon cards are in the Plucky Squire art style. So cool for me, the Pokemon guy. But the Plucky Squire, I think, had one of the coolest trailers. It's just like, it's one of those things where when you see it, you're like, I can't believe this isn't a game already, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's a top-down Zelda style adventure that takes place in a storybook, and then at certain points he leaps off the page, and then it turns into a 3D platformer. I got to play pretty much a whole level, and it was as cool as I had hoped it would be. It was super fun. Every level has a like mini game bespoke gimmick, and the one I played was a you jump into a coffee cup and it becomes a Resogun shooter where you're on a jetpack flying around the coffee cup shooting at little robots and stuff. Yeah, just so creative, really charming. Looking forward to that from, I think, Devolver later this year.
Devolver, yeah. It seems a lot like It Takes Two, and we've talked about it off camera before a little bit. It seems like that kind of It Takes Two did a lot of things where it would have an idea, it'd be really fun, then it would just throw it away, be like, no, we're done with that.
Yeah.
And it would bring out a new idea. It seems like Plucky Squire, especially the minigame parts, has a little bit of that going on, a little bit of confidence maybe that we don't often see in games. I like to hear that.
Yeah, it's also got some super Paper Mario vibes.
Do you like Paper Mario?
Yeah.
I saw a demo of it at Gamescom last year, and I think it was the same one you must have played, Eric, because the coffee cup thing sounds familiar, but just magic. I feel like that's the word for the Plucky Squire. Just a bit of magic, you know?
Yeah.
All
right, who's next?
You know what? Segueing perfectly, I might say. Speaking of magic, one of my big ones is Astrobot, of course. I know.
Yes.
I hadn't got that written down, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, Astro's Playroom, still one of the best things PS5 has done. I think we all agree on that. And this just looks like more and better. And like, I've only seen the one trailer. I know it's been at Summer Game Fest, but I didn't see it there. But it just, you have me sold on more Astrobot. I don't need to know more. I'm in. add a Sly Cooper skin, which they have, and I'm even more in. So, heaven. Cannot wait for that.
Did you ever play the VR one, Eric? Because I know you are,
No.
as well as the Pokemon guy, the VR guy, no?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've never had a PSVR.
Right, I have the PSVR 2, but it's not compatible with it, so I can't play it.
What a brilliant piece of
Good
hardware.
job, PlayStation.
Yeah.
But I love Playroom. Really looking forward to Astrobot. Feels like a good old fashioned PlayStation game. I feel like PlayStation's identity in the last decade or so has been not warped by The Last of Us. Cause I like The Last of Us. I think it's great. I think 2 especially is phenomenal. But I feel like the PlayStation I grew up with was Astrobot, right? It was Crash, Spyro, and Giant Dexter, and Ratchet and Clank. And I know things kind of move with the times, and Sly to an extent. But I like that there's still a bit of place for that charm, because I feel like Nintendo has cornered that market of like kidulthood games,
Yeah.
PlayStation doesn't really have room for them, and it's a shame because you're charging £70 for these things. $70. They're really expensive consoles, and it feels like the only thing that kids can do in them is play Roblox. Like, we need games like Astrobot. I think really for the health of the industry, we need games that you can give to a young kid and go, this is what we're this is an art form that you can access and understand at an early age, and not have it be like, money please, which all the games they play are.
I see a lot of comments like, this is very Nintendo of PlayStation, but I think you're right, it's just classic PlayStation.
PlayStation did it first. PlayStation did that. I know Mario predates them, but that kind of vibe I associate far more with PlayStation than I do with Nintendo. I know people will say, well, they all copied it from Mario 64. I feel like specifically the I guess the warmth of it, the high color saturation, is just something that I really vividly associate, particularly Crash, with like that era of like the PlayStation stamping its identity on things. And the fact they have all the mascots, and Playroom was like, you go inside the PS5 with the hard drives, and you have to find like the eye toy and that. There's a lot of PlayStation history baked into the game, and I just think that's a really nice way to revisit your history in a way that doesn't rely on cashing in on remakes. I think it's cool.
Agreed.
I think it's so cool that speed running is baked right into Astrobot. It's such an important part of like 3D platforming culture, and it's like the Mario games don't acknowledge that that's how a lot of people enjoy those games, but this one at least it does. And I think like the leaderboard stuff is really cool.
I think that's what's great. Everything we've talked about so far can be applied to Playroom, and then Astrobot is just taking that and doing more with it. It's like, we already know it's going to be great. That's my take.
Yeah. What's your Stacey? What do you got?
I'm looking down my list now. I feel like I'm going to start with the most obvious one. I do have some smaller ones that I want to get to. I know I probably won't get them all because I've got like 10 written down. But the one game I'm looking forward to most for the rest of this year is Dragon Age. I love Dragon Age. I love Dragon Age 2 in particular. That would be in my probably top 5 of all time. I just adore the series. I prefer Mass Effect, but as I find myself like looking forward to the future of both series, I'm more excited for Dragon Age because I know there's a continuation part. Maybe it's just because I've seen a bit of it and I'm like, it's pretty close now, whereas Mass Effect way off in the future. But Mass Effect is kind of stay entangled, it seems like, in the Liara story. It's still kind of in Shepardville. I don't really know how they're going to work their way out of the 3 endings. I don't feel like my ideal next Mass Effect game is being made, which would just be a completely different era, whether you go beforehand to the First Contact War, whether you go way into the future to the fuck where the Reapers have been like forgotten. There's just something about Dragon Age where I feel like a lot of things that I'm hearing are quite encouraging for me as a Dragon Age fan. I know they've dropped the combat down. That's not great. Losing a companion for me is a bigger loss than the loss of tactical combat. But obviously we saw a little bit behind closed doors at Summer Game Fest, Eric, a little bit more than what they've shown off. So we have, I guess, seen it in motion a little bit. I feel like the previews, I've said this off camera to both of you, but I don't think BioWare is very good at promoting its own games. Its trailers have never been great. The character trailer I thought was pretty bad. At showcasing the vibe of the game. So very excited by what I've seen. Talked about on the Summer Game Fest wrap up. We did our own feature on Dragon Age. I don't want to go on too much, but I couldn't really do it. Games I'm looking forward to this year, not bring up Dragon Age. Infinite Wealth is my game of the year. Also spoken about that, why that's my game of the year, kind of the personal reasons behind it, the kind of emotional heft that I have attached to that game because of when I played it. Dragon Age is not just the only game coming out this year, but the only game I can really think of that could possibly challenge that for game of the year. And it still probably won't get there. I still think it's going to be Infinite Wealth, but I have a lot of hope that Dragon Age is going to be probably not a big technological leap forward the way that some of the kind of really big temple games are, but I think it's a really important game for BioWare. They're probably my favorite studio in terms of across their history, what they've meant to me. And I would like to see them get back on top after some missteps, and I hope Dragon Age is it.
Yeah, I suspect that is broadly the most anticipated game of the year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
of the ones that are left.
Are you a Dragon Ager, Eric? Is that your thing?
No. I played Inquisition and didn't quite finish it. Not really gotten into any BioWare games. Dabbled, but I obviously they have a lot to prove. With this one, and there's like really high expectations because it's Dragon Age, but also sort of low expectations because of the past 10 years of BioWare. So, like there, it feels like it's kind of a situation where there's a lot riding on this one. Like there's a chance that EA just turns them into a support studio for, FIFA. Like, I'm gonna play this one for sure, though. I really did like what Stacey and I saw at Summer Games Fest. Not the trailer, but the actual gameplay.
See, I liked the trailer. Maybe I'm just cringe.
The character trailer or the gameplay preview trailer, do you mean?
The character trailer, I guess I just have awful taste, but...
wrong.
I don't know. Yeah, probably wrong, but I will give it a go.
The other group of journalists that we worked with, there was 2 journalists in there. There was another site that we were in with. They all seemed to like the trailer. So I, at the time, was thinking like, ooh, maybe like, I don't know, have I got the wrong vibe about BioWare? Then it came out and everyone was like, this sucks. And I was like, yeah, I was right. It did suck.
You have to be cringe to appreciate cringe. That's just life.
I like that Harding's in it. I think that's exciting, but I've spoken about that twice as well. I feel like I've mentioned Dragon Age a lot. Eric,
excited.
do you have any other games?
Oh, I have so many. Well, you called me the VR guy, so let's get this one out of the way. Batman Arkham Shadow. Now hear me out.
Okay. Meta Quest exclusive, am I right?
Yep, Quest 3 exclusive from the studio that did Iron Man VR, which is fantastic. Their director, another name I didn't write down, did an interview with, I think it was Upload recently, and said emphatically that this is Arkham Asylum style Arkham game, that it's hub with different areas that you'll return to as you get new abilities. Love that. Also emphasize the combo free-flowing combat and how much work went into making that work for VR, but knowing that if you're going to make an Arkham game, it has to have Arkham style combat. And I was like, whoa, let's see how that works. So we haven't seen the gameplay yet. We've seen the one cinematic trailer that didn't exactly light the world on fire. Rat King or whatever is an interesting choice. But I guess as much as I hate to acknowledge it, like the days of super high budget, big IP VR games is like, we're not going to get these forever. And the fact that, not to give Meta its due, but like we're 3 consoles in 5 years, like they have been on the long game with VR in a way that, like, you know, we saw how quickly Google threw Stadia in the garbage at the first sign of trouble. And VR and the Quest has had nothing but signs of trouble, and yet it keeps pumping money into really big budget, you know, Asgard's Wrath 2 and Assassin's Creed, and like they're really trying. They have not given up, and I want to be part of it while it's here, and I don't know where it's going to go. I don't feel strongly about where it's going, but we're getting a Batman Arkham game in VR. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that, like you said about like the trailer didn't really set the world on fire. I think part of that was the VR though. People were like, "Oh, we're getting a new Batman Arkham. It's a good time to get one," because they continued the Arkhamverse with Suicide Squad, which was nothing like the Arkhamverse and just didn't feel tonally the same. Didn't feel connected. It wasn't very good, etc. And then it's in VR, and I think for a lot of people that's a negative. And part of that is they don't have VR headsets. They're massively expensive. They are scary to set up. They're actually difficult to set up, but they're certainly scary to set up. You need a bit of a rig going, unless it's a PSVR one. You need a computer that'll work with it. So I think the problem is less. What was that?
Not the Quest.
The Quest is
you just put it on.
Huh. Okay.
I didn't know that.
I still think
really.
Yeah, I thought you had to plug it in.
This is. I'm sorry to cut you off. This is tragic to me that, like, people in media, the Quest, you literally just put it on. There's no computer. It's $250. Like, this should be the easiest thing in the world for people to get into.
You know what the problem? I'm going to move on from my thing with Arkham to specifically go on the Quest. The problem is that sounds cheap. Meta don't like to make cheap things, so they don't market it as that. They don't market it as the cheap alternative for VR because they don't want to be seen as that. If the marketing led more firmly, if there was really any marketing for the actual headset, not just for the games, that said, it's $250. Pop it on like a hat. Away you go. Yeah. Instead of you've got to pay $500 for a PlayStation 5, and then $500 for a PlayStation VR 2.
Right.
To then not even have all the games. PlayStation's got a couple of exclusives, but mainly the big exclusives are Quest. I think it would do a lot better. Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason I think there's not a big reaction to Shadow. I think people aren't excited to play a VR game because they don't like playing VR games because they feel not just they can't physically, they don't have a headset. They feel like that's something they're never going to get. It's a more intense version, I think, of you have an Xbox and game comes out on PlayStation. You have a PlayStation game comes out on Xbox. You know, that's always been a big motivator in why people hate things. It's what the whole console war thing is about. Most people obviously can't afford two consoles, wouldn't buy one, think they're a waste of money, think that's fair. So they get enraged when the other side does better. And VR is like that, except nobody's on that side. Everybody hates it. It's just everybody without a headset complaining that it gets games.
From the side of people who I probably should know about the Quest more, and I probably could just get one because, you know, I play games a lot. I could justify the purchase, but for me, I feel sick. Like I can't do it. So anything VR goes straight over my head. Like, I'd love to be excited for a new Batman game.
When was the last time you've played a VR game?
I played Iron Man VR last Christmas because I had the PSVR 1. I bought it thinking I'd use it, could not handle it. And then Iron Man VR, the tutorial level, awesome, loved it, but also like 5 minutes and I'm done.
Yeah.
The sickness thing doesn't bother me. Like, I've got a PSVR 2. I've previewed a lot of Quest, and what's the other one called? Oculus?
Yes.
I've previewed
Rift.
Oculus is the Quest.
All right. What's the other one called?
Vive or the Steam. What's the Valve one?
I've moved on from caring. I've previewed other VR games at various conventions in different headsets. None of them feel comfortable with glasses, I will say. So it's not a sickness thing for me. And I'm not against VR. I feel like you said, I'm really excited to play this game we've got. Here is why. Not just the game, but the very method in which you want to play it is doomed to die in the next 5 years. I think a new Arkham game sounds cool. if I had one of these expensive hats that doesn't need a computer, then I'd be very excited to play it.
I will say that Eric's argument did convince me more. The trailer, I remember we were both there for Eric. We both laughed. We both chortled in its face at the after credits scene.
Laughed,
and
cried,
stuff like
stood
that.
up and cheered.
We did all of it except for cheer. And you saying that about the combat and about it being Arkham style does convince me more. I just, for my personal standpoint, makes me sicky. So not excited for me. I'm so excited for you.
People were always going to groan and complain that it was a VR game, but I also think it's definitely the case that had Suicide Squad been the true Arkham successor, then this wouldn't have made people so upset.
And this game wouldn't exist otherwise. This is not a game that they made VR halfway through development in a desperate attempt to like bolster the tech. This was a game made from the ground up for VR.
Yep.
It's a VR game
from a VR studio. Yeah,
it just wouldn't exist. I didn't realize it was actually coming out this year though. Is that like a speculated one, or is it confirmed for this year?
Confirmed 2024. Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's what the end of the trailer said. 2024. We just don't know when.
Need to get a little bit of gameplay out there. I think maybe it'll be one of the summer conventions. Between the three of us, we were at most of them, so one will see it, experience it in the flesh. Hopefully,
that was in the trailer too. They had a gameplay reveal, but I don't remember what the date was.
Probably Gamescom. Asia.
Yeah. What else, George? What do you got?
So Eric's had his moment, and I'm sure you two now have realised what I'm about to talk about. Your eyes are glazing over. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, baby. I'm a lifelong fan of Dragon Ball. I'm a lifelong fan of many things, but Dragon Ball is like very high up there on that list. I've loved it for as long as I can remember loving anything, which now sounds weirder, but most of that started with playing Budokai Tenkaichi on the PS2, which is what this Sparking Zero is based on. It's like the sequel to that. The last one we got was more than a decade ago, a really long time. No one thought that was coming back because we'd moved on to Kakarot and Xenoverse and Fighters. Like, there's so many Dragon Ball games, so I understand when people go, this is your most exciting game of the year. Like, aren't there like 9 Dragon Ball games? Yeah, that's exactly what people say. But Sparking Zero is special. Like, it's unique in that it's coming off of this series. It's been away for so long. And Budokai Tenkaichi just understood Dragon Ball. Like, it understood how to do the battles. It understood how to represent each character. Yes, a million Gokus. Yes, a million Vegetas. But that is what we like. That is what we want. I want every Goku, every Vegeta, every form, everything. That sounds so weird if you're outside the Dragon Ball sphere, but the other day
everything you say about this game sounds weird. I asked the other day why they were named after, like, why is one of them not vegetables? He said, oh, he's from the underwear family. Like, I'm just not here for this game. I just don't get it.
That's true. Don't think about that. Don't think about the Trunks, the Brief's family name. But I played it at Summer Game Fest. I've been so excited since the first trailer, and my main worry was, it looks the part, talks the part. Can it actually walk the walk? That is a mixed metaphor, but you know what I mean. And it does. It's fantastic. It is Budokai Tenkaichi to a T.
To ask a real question on it, because I do know you're excited about it, and I know other people are, so I don't want to just dismiss Dragon Ball because I don't understand it. But I feel like we've been here before with multiverses. You were really excited about the stuff with multiverses. You were a big fan of multiverses. Well, go on, you were a really big fan of multiverses. It came out, and I think you really, I guess, had your finger on the pulse of the fan base. Everything that happened with multiverses, you were kind of aware of things players liked, things they didn't like. Maybe didn't always agree with those things, but were really aware of what people were thinking. And the way you talk about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero feels very similar to me. It feels like a thing that you and some other people out there are really, really into, and everyone else is just kind of, eh. Yeah. What is the feeling in the fan base? Like, do other people expect it to be the big success, like second coming that you do?
They are. From the moment this was revealed, I was woken up at like 2 a.m. because I had so many Twitter notifications going off, like, oh my god, the second coming of Christ or whatever. Like, that is how people view this. I feel like with Dragon Ball, it's such a specific thing where I thought you were going to ask me, like, why should people care if they don't like Dragon Ball? And I was then going to respond with, everyone likes Dragon Ball. It's like one of the biggest things in the world, but...
No, people won't care if they don't like Dragon Ball, but you're right, it's got a huge fan base, that doesn't matter.
but it is exactly what people are asking for. I know that feels like a very generic thing to say when something you're excited about is coming up, but this is
been
it.
a lot of Dragon Ball games that haven't been that, right? That's kind of the
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
It's had a lot of games that fans, I'm even aware that fans have kind of not been happy with Dragon Ball games for a little while now, right? They've been kind
It's
of middling.
more. Actually, we've been on a really solid run from Kakarot, Xenoverse, and Fighters, but this is the one, like, before Kakarot, before Xenoverse. You hear people say, I'd like Fighters 2, or I'd like Xenoverse 3. You hear that all the time, but for like long before any of those existed, it was when's Budokai Tenkaichi 4, and we have it, and it, this is the thing, when I heard those sort of requests, it was like, yeah, they could bring it back, but will it even be the same? And they've got the original developers. It feels the same. Well, it feels the same but improved. Like, it's not just a PS2 game, but they really have understood what made that work, and they're just running with it. I still have like questions because we actually haven't seen that much besides the Summer Game Fest showcase. Like, there's still loads to show, so I've still got questions. But I was already in a Dragon Ball. But yeah, this is the fourth one, but they've just called it.
When was the third in this series? This is a big one.
Back when the Wii was out. So
wow, I don't need the year. That's fine. So it's been a long
ancient
time coming.
times.
Wow.
Yeah. So long time coming. And I only got 25 minutes, but those 25 minutes were the best of June.
Best 25 minutes of your life.
Yes, of my life. They were the best 25 minutes. So I can't wait. Like, I've gone from skeptic excitement to just excitement. Like, this is just gonna...
There was never any point when there was no excitement.
No.
There's
always excitement.
Really
that is me.
Yeah. I'm a lifelong fan of many things.
Go on, Stace. Hit us with your one.
In keeping actually with it, I've got some other newer games that I want to talk about, like new series, new IP, as the kids call them. But going back to a series like Dragon Age that had meant a lot to me for a long time, Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Yeah.
Another one that I touched on in the Xbox showcase, but I think I've probably got a little bit, I don't know, more to say about. I kind of thought about what I like about this game, what I don't. I really love Life is Strange. It's, for a lot of people, the kind of the moment of feeling immersed in a story, feeling like a deeper storytelling was occurring in game, and was when they played the Last of Us. I didn't play that at launch. It was kind of around the time I was still kind of getting back into game, and I played Mass Effect, which I suppose had Mass Effect 2, which I suppose had that element to it. But Life is Strange is the first time I remember really relating to a character in a game, really, like, I don't know, I guess projecting into the game, seeing a little bit of myself and just feeling like I was not just making decisions as a gaming character who wanted to win the game, who wanted to like get to the end of the level or beat the boss or whatever, but felt something deeper, I suppose, something that felt more like a connection with the art rather than just trying to get the high score. So I've been a big fan of series since then. I really like 2. I don't think 2 gets as much respect as it should, with Sean Diaz. Obviously, Before the Storm, which was the prequel to the original Life is Strange, great. And then that obviously gives us True Colors, which I really, really loved, like those 2 years ago. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in the series, but obviously Double Exposure goes back to Max. The thing I'm concerned about really is why. I think Max has a pretty firm ending, and they say they're going to... This is the same problem I guess I have with why I'm not as enthusiastic for Mass Effect as I am for Dragon Age. I guess skip the next 10 seconds because I'm going to spoil Life is Strange. But in Life is Strange, there's 2 endings, quite famously. You either sacrifice Chloe, who might be your best friend, might be your girlfriend, depending on your choices made. I think the majority of players, certainly the hardcore players, played them as lovers. So you either sacrifice Chloe to like satisfy the time paradox, somebody must die. It's kind of like a Final Destination thing. More than 10 seconds have passed, skip another 20. So you need to sacrifice Chloe and all will be right in the world. Or say, I can't make that choice, I will choose you over anything, and Arcadia Bay, the home that you live in, is destroyed by a tornado. And it's kind of unclear the aftermath of how that impacts the various citizens who live in the town. That's a pretty major decision that Max makes. It's a life-altering decision. And I don't know how they can do double exposure and respect that choice. It can't just be set like 15 years down the line and her life's the same either way. It will not be. It cannot be. She's killed her first true love for the sake of a world that will never know and never believe the sacrifices that she put in. Or she has stayed with... She's kept that person alive. Clearly has then broken up with them, because Chloe can't be in the game, if you're going to respect both choices. And destroyed... I don't actually know if that's a hometown, because she's at a prep school, but she's destroyed this town and killed people who live there. She's got to be a character who's deeply shaped by two very, I feel, different types of trauma, which grows into other types of trauma if you add in the fact that did Chloe break up with her? Chloe cheating her? Why is Chloe not there? So I'm really cautious about how it treats Max, because when I first saw the trailer, I was obviously at the Xbox show, my first thought was, Max, I know that character, I like that character, Max is back. And I think a lot of people will. She's in there because Max is now the IP of the franchise. And I don't know that I like that. So I'm very excited for it, because I love the series, and I trust that it'll all work out, I guess. But I have a lot of questions over how you can take a character who has two wildly different endings and say you respect them both. I think at that point it would be better to choose one. I know some players would be like, but I chose this one. You don't understand. Me, main character over here, special snowflake, I did this. So the next game has to do that because I did it. I think they'd have been better off doing a canon choice and saying, she killed Chloe. Here's Max dealing with the aftermath of Chloe's death. Or, nope, saved Chloe. Here is Max and Chloe living together. Or maybe Chloe broke up with her. Maybe a million things happened. But here is a direct through line of choices that could have been made. Because I saved Chloe. But if this new game was like dealing with the death of Chloe, I would find that a really fascinating way to examine that, especially because that's the less popular choice for them to examine the after effects of the trauma that they ended the game on. It makes it better than just a cliffhanger choice. It was, this was a meme. People had T-shirts with Bay or Bay on it. This was like a meme in the franchise, in the fandom. So you've got it. I think they had a chance if they were going to bring Max back again. I think they needed to commit to a very serious event in Max's life, and I'm disappointed that they haven't. But I'm willing to see how they do it before I pass judgment.
Yeah, I like Life is Strange. I don't think as much as you do, Stace, but I like 2 is actually my favorite one. Surprisingly,
I like 2. I like Sean.
That is kind of the main thought for me, that I'm happy that there's more Life is Strange, but I am very surprised that that's the way they've gone about it. I saw like a gameplay clip the other day that was Max mentioning Chloe as like a childhood sweetheart or something, and that was alarm bells ringing. So I'm really curious too. I think more Life is Strange is always a good thing, but I just hope it's thoughtfully done. I think in the same vein of what you said.
Hard to imagine like how you sort that out. It almost feels like in an attempt not to invalidate one choice or the other, they have
100% that
invalidated all the choices.
Yeah, definitely. It's going back to Mass Effect, but I see this. Maybe Mass Effect has more fans, so I see this a bit more. But as the new series coming out, people are like, oh well, you can't make it the Destroy ending because I chose Control. I don't care. I haven't never met you. I don't know who you are. Like, I'm sorry, I played it through 3 times and chose all 3. Like, I don't. They have. If you want more Mass Effect in this era, they need to choose one. If you want more Maxine, which I think is what she's going by in the industry, which I also don't like. But if you want more Max, Max's life is defined by that.
Right. Yeah. That'll be really interesting to see what they do. Okay, I have 2 that I'm not positive are actually coming out this year. The first one is Industria 2, which was just revealed. I think it was the PC gaming show.
Okay.
Earlier this month. I like Industria a lot. it is a very short, story-driven first-person shooter. But what it really is a spiritual successor to Half-Life.
Okay.
It's a Half-Life like, which is not really a genre that exists. But it is takes place. It begins the night that the Berlin Wall fell, and it takes place in a alternate reality, East Berlin, that is very much City 17 retrofitted with weird technology and evil robots. And it's just such a cool world to explore, and it's got the Half-Life level design that's almost puzzle-like in the way that you move from point A to point B. And it's like a 4-hour game, and it's like really, really high def graphics, and I adore that game, and I figure the sequel probably isn't going to take too long to come out. I think Industria was, I want to say 2019 or 2020. So I think there's a good chance this one does come out this year. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the other one, which I can't believe we didn't see at all through the Summer Games Fest gauntlet, is the casting of Frank Stone.
Yeah, that got a release date the other day. That's September 21st, I believe.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
that's
cool.
this year.
All right. So, so I'm not a Dead by Daylight guy, but I am a Supermassive guy, and you know, maybe I'll become a Dead by Daylight guy. Nah, probably not. Probably too late for that. But I don't think it matters. Like, I don't.
No.
I know that. I know that there's lore there, and people like the killers on an aesthetic level, and they have a connection to them because they have played hundreds of hours as Frank Stone. I assume he's one of the killers, right? I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
He's new, isn't he? He's gonna be added to the game, I think.
He's going to be okay. Well, whatever. It's a Supermassive game, right? Like, it's a movie game. It's a horror movie game. It's gonna be cool. All their games are cool. Even the bad ones are cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm a fan. They have not missed a year. They've put out a new game every year since 2016, I think. Sometimes 2.
Wow.
They did Quarry and The Last Dark Pictures the same year.
Jesus.
Crazy. Yeah, George.
Actually, sorry. I'm looking at this. Since 2010, they've only skipped 2014.
Wow.
Some of them are small games as ports and.
Last year they just had a VR game.
Yeah.
Switchback.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
one of the few PlayStation exclusives they have.
Very few.
Go ahead, George.
Speaking of horror games that might not be coming in 2024, but I'm hoping they are. Here we go. Slow reveal. Dead Rising. Yes. Yesterday, they announced, Capcom, out of nowhere, hey, we're doing Dead Rising again. And let me tell you, I thought Dead Rising was long dead. Dead Rising 4, even though I enjoyed it because I'm stupid, was bad. Not good. Good Christmas game.
Lifelong fan of many things.
Yes, lifelong fan of many things. Dead Rising is on that list. High up on that list, like Dragon Ball. Yeah, I can't believe it's coming. We don't know much yet. It kind of looks like it's going to be... Capcom's struggling to call it a remake, which makes me think that it sticks closer to the original game than the Resi remakes do.
But it's a deluxe remaster.
Yeah,
it's not like a collector's edition thing. They're calling it deluxe remaster, which suggests it's a halfway house between a remake and a remaster. Yeah, I expect Resi 4.
I thought they were just trying to be funny with the name because it's DR. Yeah.
But also,
I think that's pretty part of it.
Dead Rising Deluxe Remake could be DR, as was pointed out to me, because I made the exact same point and I was mugged off about it. But whatever the case, the first Dead Rising is the best Dead Rising, and it's very special to me. I love the whole series, even 4 a little bit, like a cousin you don't talk to, but I still love it.
You love it like a cousin you don't talk to. Like closest to familial relations we all have.
But I love Dead Rising, and the first one is in it's such a strange game compared to the rest of the series. Like, it's handled so differently to the rest in how it does tone, in its difficulty, in stuff like combo weapons, the specificity of even the gameplay, like the movement. Like you have the stutter before you do a heavy attack. Like there's so much weird about Dead Rising that I am so curious to find out how they translate that. And just to have it back, just to have Dead Rising back. If this leads to Dead Rising 2 Deluxe Remaster, or make a new game, that'd be cool.
It's gotta be a new game. So sorry, Capcom, make a new game. Make
a new game. Yeah, but for now,
reopen Cat Fountain Vancouver. Hire all those people back.
Yeah, let's do that. But just don't do Dead Rising 4 again, please.
I think it's on the whole remaster remake thing. It's worth noting that Capcom doesn't usually label anything. Like we call it Resident Evil 4 remake. That's not its name. Just go Resident Evil 4. Capcom does not officially label things. They in the press releases they say it's a remake, they say it's a remaster, but the name of the game, the Resident Evil that came out last year, is Resident Evil 4 2023.
Huh.
Its official name is not. We call it remake because that's obviously what it is.
Yeah,
but Capcom very rarely labels things, and it's specifically decided to label this one as a deluxe remaster, which I know is a DRDR joke, but I think it suggests there's something else going on.
Yeah, I don't know. The way the cutscene's done, obviously TJ Rotolo isn't back as Frank West. That's been talked about, and obviously the graph's been updated. But I think it's important to note that the script is the exact same as it was. The way the cutscenes, like the angles and the way the characters move, the exact same. So I feel like it's going to be, up-resed, new look, same gameplay, and some additions. That's my hope, because I don't want them to touch Dead Rising and change it. I don't want them to go, let's make this like Dead Rising 2 or 3 or 4. Like, no, just the original HD, fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I agree. I wrote about this yesterday when the game was announced, but the big thing for me is I think a lot of the things that Dead Rising does, modern games probably wouldn't get away with. I know we have some very hard games like Elden Ring out today. I don't think it's the fact that games have gotten easier, but I think there's an expectation that there's a little bit more hand-holding. I think that's why games like Tears of the Kingdom and Elden Ring are so rare, because they don't really conform to that. But like, when you die in Dead Rising, it's like, do you want to load or do you want to save? And if you click save, it deletes your game. Like it's really brutal with what it means with things. You've got to say you only save in certain locations, which is also really being phased out in games. Like very rare that games do that these days, as opposed to just push the pause menu. And even the idea of like doing things on a timer, I think you would struggle to not struggle to get away with. Necessarily even for players, but I think a lot of boardroom decisions would kind of go, how does this like algorithmize our play? How does this help with player retention 100%. Strategies? And all, like, I feel like it's just a bit of a relic of when games were just allowed to go, this will be weird, this will be fun, this will make it a more memorable or unique experience, as opposed to our focus group tells us players like this. So I would love them to add combo weapons, which I think is a huge part of Dead Rising, not in the first one. You're not as sure. That's interesting. I would really love them to add combo weapons, because I feel they are Dead Rising. But I don't want them to touch the timer. Don't want them to touch the saves. I don't really want them to do anything with the way it plays either, because you can kind of discover the psychopaths in different orders in Dead Rising, and I feel like... I know I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I complain about this in Elden Ring and Zelda, but I feel like that's something that modern players really enjoy. Roaming around and finding, you find a boss in Elden Ring, but you don't like that zone, you're not very good, so you go back and you level up and do other things. And I think because the psychopaths aren't always that interesting, they aren't like big godlike creatures like in Elden Ring. It's just like a guy with a rifle in the vegetable section. You think, I'll take him. You don't realize that he's a boss, really, So... I think it's really fun the way that they let you discover stuff in the game, and I guess I hope they keep that. But I do want to like staple or sellotape a chainsaw to a broom. I do.
That's strange to me, because I've talked about this today in the fact that I want the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster to nail the tone, right? Like the trailer has circus music over Frank West like thing, and it has a splash screen, and combo weapons I feel like are in tone with Dead Rising, and I feel like they are an important part of it, so that's fine. But I feel like what combo weapons led to where in other games you had like Frank West strapping a mech suit on and doing icy tornadoes with a slushy machine on his back.
Yeah, the electric axe thing.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I agree. I think preserving the tone is a really, really big part of it because it was. I don't think it actually was. It was like threatened of being sued by George Romero because of
Yes,
the
it was.
similarities to Dawn of the Dead.
On
So
the box,
it was quite a serious it didn't go anywhere near as deep as Dawn of the Dead, but it was some kind of like riff on American capitalism and like these like brainless zombies going nuts inside a mall. It was very deliberate and like it's like points that it was making. And I do think it got silly as it went on. People like the silliness. It's a little bit like Saints Row in that regard. If you remade the first Saints Row and you added in like the Dominator, is it called? I think if you added in like this is a gun that shoots sharks, which they have in Saints Row 4, you couldn't take that to into Saints Row 1 and 2.
No, I agree. I think
that's fair.
It needs to be like you have we won't go on about Dead Rising too long, even though I am very excited. But you have the paddle saw, which is in the realms of reality, right? Like obviously, I'm sure some idiot on YouTube has made the paddle saw a reality, but then you have stuff in later games. It wouldn't work. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's not even Frank West's thing. It's Chuck Green's thing. But
that's true.
I'd be happy to see some of them come over. I'd be happy if they were willing to make that big of a leap to add that in and kind of tie the whole series together. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Not only that it's not this year, it might be 2025, but there's a lot that needs to be done right and it needs to be handled carefully. And even speaking then, I am George, so I am very excited, and that is very high up my list. Stacey, your go.
I think I've actually spoken with this on this show. I'm reading through my list now and thinking I've got some pretty obvious games that I'm excited for. I think everyone kind of wants to play Indiana Jones. Everyone wants to play Metaphor.
That's on my list.
A lot of people like me want to play Metaphor. But one of the games that I've not talked about, I don't think ever on these podcasts across various things, that I'm really looking forward to, and I think I'll get to play it in the summer at the various conventions, is Infinity Nikki.
Infinity
Nikki. Big fan of everything that I've seen from it. I know it comes from a little bit of it comes from a what's it called, a gacha background. So there's a lot of like, is it going to kind of lean into being like a Genshin, Honkai, Endless End Zero, kind of that sort of thing? But this game doesn't seem to be aiming for that. It seems to be a lot more stepping out of that into a kind of open world play. It's kind of like a dress-up game that embraces some of the traits that we saw in the Zelda games. Like an open zone platform, I suppose I would call it. A little bit like Sly Cooper.
Yes.
And I really, really liked it on the I thought when I reviewed it, I was kind of neutral on it because I didn't think it was particularly ambitious or that interesting with what it did with its ideas. But the basic foundation of Princess Peach Showtime, where she puts on a cowboy outfit and she gets cowboy power. She puts on the swordfighter outfit, she becomes a swordfighter. She dresses as a ninja, she gets that. I felt like you do 3 levels of each thing. They all felt very samey and flat. I didn't think there was the usual verve that I see in a Mario game. But the basic idea was really cool. And that's really what Infinity Nikki is promising. The different dresses have different powers. And last year we saw... Was it last year or was it the year before? Fashion Dreamer. That was supposed to be this...
Yeah.
I guess way to reimagine the fashion game. It came from the people who'd made Style Savvy, kind of a spiritual successor, but it was so empty. It was a metaverse game, and we've all seen the metaverse. There was nothing in there. It was like this grey void. You weren't even trying to be a fashion designer or a model, which is like that's what these games are about. You were an influencer trying to gain followers on. It wasn't Instagram. It was whatever their fake version of Instagram was called. But it just felt so like shallow and vacuous. And I was playing it. I reviewed that a lot poorly than I did Princess Peach. And I was thinking, I played a lot of these games growing up as a kid. And have they always been like this? Have they always been quite empty? Was I just as a kid just a little bit more easily amused, if you like? So I went back, and they're quite hard to play, a lot of like the Style Savvy games and things to get your hands on. So I played, like saw some YouTube footage stuff and like dug out some of the old copies that I've got for discs that'll still work for various dress-up games, and just to, like, satisfy my own curiosity. And I thought, actually, these older games had more ideas than Fashion Dreamer. Fashion Dreamer just seemed to be like, and if you talk to this person, you'll unlock a hat. If you talk to this person, you'll unlock some shoes.
Mm.
Then we talked to that, and I was like, yeah, I get it. You talk to people. But the older games just had more. It felt like. I guess it felt like back then the devs were really pushing up against the capabilities that you could do with a fashion game with, like, limited storage space, and they were really trying to make you get your money's worth. Whereas in this one, there was just a bit of a sense that vast emptiness. We'll add 1,000 more leather jackets in. Then you can't say there's no content. And I found it so. I don't know. I felt like I was wilting as I played it. It was just dull. And Infinity Nikki is kind of. That's what I expected fashion games to be, I guess. You know, I grew up playing Barbie games and seeing them be so far behind the games for boys, if you like. And thinking, like, these are really interesting characters. Barbie is the most iconic character. I would argue the most iconic character ever created. She's on that platform with, like, Mickey Mouse. Everyone in the world knows who Barbie is. And has never really had any vehicle, I don't think, to, like, tell that story very well. Like, even, like, the Monster High games were better. And I know Infinity Nikki's not a Barbie game, but it gives me that kind of feeling that I got when I used to play the Barbie games of there's something more to this, and I think merging it with a platform and giving them powers is a really cool way to do that. So I'm a little bit cautious of its roots, but I think it's a really cool idea for a game. I like that, in the same way that I said about Astrobot being for a different audience, I think Infinite Nikki's for a bit of a different audience that I liked seeing gaming. So that's a game that I think is probably not going to do, not going to sell 1 million copies. It's not going to be a game that we all write about on the site and get really excited about the way we did for Baldur's Gate or games like that. But for the right people, hopefully, if this angle's right, I think it'll be quite an impactful game for a lot of people's experience with gaming. And that's always... It's always quite an exciting thing to think about. It doesn't always work out that way, Fashion Dreamer, but it's a nice thing to consider.
How much Sly Cooper's in it?
You run around on, like, platforms and you collect coins. I think
that sounds like Sly Cooper to me.
That's all he does.
That is not all he does. You take that back. He
He
finds
also
clear
swings
bottles.
with his cane. He finds the
robs
bottles.
thieves.
Little Blinky the turtle
he's
goes,
multi-layered.
"You missed a bottle, Sly. Go back and get a bottle." No, I'm not doing it. I don't care.
I hope Infinity Nikki is good.
Yeah.
Let me try to bullet point the rest of the stuff on my list here before we go too long. Obviously, Indiana Jones.
Yep, on my list as well.
Don't need to say too much about that. Mario and Luigi Brothers. The Brothership.
The Brothership.
I do love the brothers, and Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, of course. Nintendo is on. World of Warcraft: The War Within is the next expansion coming out in August, the beginning of a trilogy of not the end of WoW, but sort of the WoW's final shape moment.
Yeah.
Excited about that, as well as Diablo 2's Vessel of Hatred expansion. I haven't been keeping up with the Diablo seasons, but I really enjoyed the campaign, so more campaign will be fun. And then 2 remakes, Epic Mickey Rebrushed.
Yes.
That's got to be on your list, George.
Yeah, it isn't, but it is in my head.
The most successful third-party Wii game, apparently.
So I read that, actually, yeah.
So I was told. I played like one level at GDC, and I was like, wow, this game was so ahead of its time. Such an interesting, weird platformer. And then Snake Eater, which could be terrible, or it could be, made by a bunch of Kojima fans that really get it. Or it could be made by Konami putting too many fingers in that pie that already had too many fingers in it.
I think we know which one it's going to be, but
Kojima's
let's hope anyway.
Yeah. And then last one I wanted to touch on was The Alters, which was not on my radar until recently. Tessa previewed it, and this is a survival crafting game, which is I'm all about a guy who crash lands on an alien planet, which I'm all about, and then staffs his project by making clones of himself, but not really clones, more like alternate versions, copies of himself from different dimensions, and has to sort of confront the choices he's made in his life and who he could be had he made different choices. And I just think all of that sounds so cool.
Very cool.
I'm super into this one. That's my list. George, what else you got?
So on my list, I also have Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I'm surprised we haven't mentioned yet. Not that big on Assassin's Creed. I wasn't one of the people like begging for feudal Japan, but I don't know. It sounds cool. I'll give it a go. I'm not sure if it will stick with me because none of the Assassin's Creed recently have. But another Ubisoft game that definitely will stick with me is Star Wars Outlaws. Big Star Wars fan. Fan of many things, as I've said. But I just think it's the first properly open world Star Wars game. As a Star Wars fan, that excites me.
I played 3 of the levels. They felt pretty linear to me. I know they're calling it an open world game. I think people should rein in their expectations for what that means a little bit, having played an hour of it. I didn't feel it was as open world as like Far Cry, if I'm honest. But maybe they were showing me very specific sections and didn't want me running off in different directions, which is very understandable. Because the game's still a few months from being out. I felt it was more linear than I was expecting it. It didn't feel that different to Survivor in terms of how it approached the Star Wars explorability.
I mean, even if it is Star Wars Uncharted or another Survivor kind of thing.
It definitely is Star Wars Uncharted.
I am more than happy with that.
I also have pitch. Yeah, not an insult, but that's what it is.
Yeah, it's like 1-3-1-3, which I'm happy with. I have Brothership as well. Indiana Jones, Avowed looks really cool.
Yes, never on my list, but yes.
Outer World's really good, so I'm happy for them to do more to that scale. And then 2 the smaller scale ones, Skate Story from Devolver as well.
Yeah.
Not sure if it's 2024 because I played it and I asked, and it was kind of a maybe kind of response. But take all the time you need because it's fantastic so far. And then finally, to end on a George note, TMNT Splintered Fate. I know that's on no one's list, but
that's like this week, isn't it?
That is next month, so very soon.
Okay.
But also technically already out on Apple Arcade if you subscribe to that.
Right,
which I do not.
That's what it is. Okay.
But
that's like a roguelike.
Yeah, it's TMNT Hades. You're just mashing together 2 things I love. So very on board for that. TMNT goodness. Stace, you'll go.
I'll complete the trio. I also had Indiana Jones Metaphor, which I've played a little bit of at Summer Game Fest, but I think what I played is now available as a demo, at least some of it. It was not as different from Persona as I expected, but in some ways very different to Persona. I thought it was cool, had a nice little vibe to it. We full preview is available on the site because I think talked about it enough already. This is a game that I've completely stolen from Eric. Eric played it at Summer Game Fest, but I think it sounds very cool. UFO 50.
Yes.
No idea if I will play UFO 50 to completion because for people who have not heard Eric talk about it, it's 50 games. It's 50 different games.
Whole games.
Yes,
it's basically if you imagine the Sega collections or those other like collections of video game companies that put their like greatest hits together. It's a fake company, UFO, who didn't make 50 games, so one developer has made 50 for them and sold it as a collection, and there's just a whole range of games in there, including like some like 60-hour RPGs.
Yeah.
So there's no chance I'm going to really ever be able to play 50 video games to play one video game, but I will definitely check it out. I think it's cool. Time Flies, which I played at Summer Game Fest last year, which is the opposite of UFO 50, because instead of 50 video games, you have about 80 seconds to play the whole game because you have to live out the life of a fly. You have to do different things. It's a little bit like While Waiting, which is another game Eric's mentioned, where you get like kind of cryptic clues for what to do. So one of the things in Time Flies is you had to travel the world in 80 seconds. So you had to find a globe in a room and then like spin the globe around, so you travelled around it. So there's loads of stuff like that. Really funky little game. Enjoy it a lot. Where Winds Meet, I also played at Summer Game Fest last year. It was supposed to come out last winter. It currently has no release date. When they did a open beta for PC, it was very buggy. I'm very scared that it's not going to be as good as I remember it when I was like sat on their like supervised dev build on their computer that they'd taken, but I liked it a lot. It is just another Souls-Light. We could always do one more. Sure, this will be the one that cracks it. And then my last one, also no release date, but is aiming for this year, is By Sweet Carol.
Yes.
Like a 2D platformer based on I wasn't a fake Disney princess. That's not quite right, but it uses Golden Age Disney artwork, very kind of Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, to tell a dark, twisted fairy tale about rabbits. And also like kidnappers who seem to be nefarious metaphors for things like adolescence or scary concepts. It wouldn't be horror if it wasn't secretly about trauma.
Wowie zowie. That was like 30 games.
Yeah. Well, it's at least 50 because I said you were for 50.
That's true. Yeah.
That was
like
30 games
plus 50 games. Man, in just 6 months, that's like 5 games a month.
Yep.
And I could say more.
Yeah, I had loads more. There are loads more.
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, that's coming out this year.
I wouldn't have started with that, but yeah.
Definitely coming out this year. Yes, much to look forward to. Packed year. We'll have to talk about our game of the years so far later too, because it's already been a packed year. But we'll have to save that for next time. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
I think it's worth remembering that 2024 is supposed to be a shallow year for games, so buckle up for next year when we have loads of games that were delayed into 2025, loads of games that were announced in 2025, loads of games that haven't been released in 2025, and the small matter of GTA.
Yes, and Kingdom Hearts 4, probably. Yes, no, we're all excited,
probably
right?
Not.
Probably.
Okay, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week for another TG Roundtable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's The Gamer. No spaces.